Should you pull for Miss Tribbie, or should you wait for MIDI to come out to get the Hua Hua rerun? Because which one is really going to be better for your account? Which one really offers you more value for your account? And that's what we're going to be going over in today's video, gamers, because today I want to talk about a couple different things. First of all, as you can see here, things they do, free-to-play viability, and future-proof ability, because all of these three things play an integral role to pulling a character, and I do believe that some of these things could make it a must-pull for you, or maybe not a must-pull for you, depending on your search situation. So let's start off where all things start off. First is, what do these characters do? What do they really offer you in terms of value for your account, in terms of the buffs and everything like that they would offer for your team? So starting off with Miss Tribbie first, guys, she's going to be giving you damage vulnerability of 30%. She's also giving you res pin from 24%. This comes from skill here. The other one's going to be coming from ult here when she has her field down. But with Tribbie, she is more than just a support, as you see here, guys. She is also a sub DPS too. So she'll be giving you follow-up attacks and additional damage. These follow-up attacks here, guys, as you can see right here, you'll be getting increased damage by 72% for every single follow-up that Tribbie does, and this can stack up to 3 times and only lasts for 2 different turns. So the big thing with her, guys, is you really want to make sure that you're following up quite frequently with her. And how do you do that? By having a good uptime on her ultimate move. That means a 2-turn ult, which if you watch my build guide, you can definitely see how to get a 2-turn ult on her. So if you do plan on pulling her after today's video, then you can go watch the video on that. Maybe it'll be linked in the description, I don't know. Also, this move will be attacking every single enemy on the field, and this really plays well with like characters like the Herder, right? We'll talk more about teams later on. And then finally, guys, she'll be giving you additional damage. This means she's hitting extra times on the enemy. It works exactly, or very similarly to how Robin works, right? You basically attack the enemy, and then she'll be doing an additional damage attack on the enemy. It's not considered a follow-up attack. It's just additional damage she's doing on the enemy, but her field has to be up, just like Robin has to be in her Concerto state for it to work as well. This is very single target oriented. It'll be targeting the enemy with the highest HP, so this will be targeting really your boss enemies here. So you're putting more damage down on the bosses itself. Now, what does Miss Hua Hua do? Now, Miss Hua Hua here this is actually really huge, guys. Honestly, energy recharge. This means whenever you pop her ultimate move off, she'll be giving 20% max energy to all of your allies. So this means this number does fluctuate depending on who you have on the team and what that energy cost is of the person on the team. Meaning, if you were to have a character like Aglia, right, that has 350 energy, you'll be taking 20% of that 350, and it'll be giving you 70 energy back for your Aglia. So this can give you an absolutely insane amount of energy back, but it really just depends on the characters you have. So this makes her really good for pairing up with allies that have high energy caps, or characters that really rely on getting that ultimate move off. So that she's really good for that too. Nextly, guys, she gives you a 40% attack bonus here. Pretty massive. It's going to work great for Dot. The next, guys, she's going to be having a cleanse. She has about 6 cleanses per skill, 7 cleanses per skill, if you want to count the cleansing that comes from the skill itself. And on top of this, you're just doing a lot of healing in general. Now, on paper, guys, I'm not going to lie. What looks better in terms of like the damage you're getting here, because if we were to compare like the damage here, it only gives you a 40% attack buff here. From here, you're getting 30% vulnerability and then also 24% res pin. This is going to be better than 40% attack just about any day of the week. So, I mean, you're ultimately getting more damage out with her here than you would for her here, but you gotta keep in mind they do play pretty separate roles here. I think you need to keep that thought throughout the whole video here. Both of these play completely, it's like she is a sub DPS supporter, while she is a supporter that her main job is sustaining and keeping the team alive. And I think really the big thing, right, is that she does offer sub DPS level of damage out. So with her, you're able to get some extra damage out on the enemies. You're also able to run her in more of like, I guess you could say like a hyper carry scenario. I think this right here literally gives her that much to run this hyper carry scenario. So this does help out just with the overall damage you're doing. And on top of that, guys, she gives very different buffs here. If we take a look at something like the damage formula here as well, most of the current buffers we have in the game right now will be giving your allies either base damage, which would be attack here per se, right? Crit, so crit damage here, damage, obviously damage percent here, and then maybe some of these other things as well. Like I know that Ruan Mei will give some res down the enemy, but for the most part, guys, most of the buffers we have in the game are going to be giving you big swaths of these 3 things right here, and this is where she comes in the clutch at, because in these hyper carry scenarios, while she's providing you that sub DPS level of damage here, she will also be providing you with some other buffs later down the damage formula, which would be res and also vulnerability. So you're getting res and vulnerability from her, which doesn't overcap your crit or overcap your damage. This gives you a nice even amount of multipliers across the board, which usually leads out to you getting more damage out with your DPS, rather than just stacking up on crit damage, rather than just stacking up on damage percentage. It's going to be really good getting these 2 multipliers here, so I do want to let that be known here. But the big thing here with Miss Hua Hua is the energy. I honestly think this is going to be the biggest thing with seeing how energy currently works in the game right now. now. Aglia, for example, 350 energy cost for her ult, and we're starting to see bigger and bigger energy caps. I do think that she does work in this scenario here. But in terms of what they do, guys, I do think that Tribbie, I know being a sub DPS supporter, does do more than what Hua Hua is able to do, right? I'm not saying that this is bad. I'm just saying that she does a bit more, right? And that kind of leads us into our next section here, which is free-to-play viability. And I want to talk about team options first, because both these characters can be ran on a plethora of teams. I do believe that Miss Hua Hua here, can be ran on more teams, but that's something we're going to get into now. All right, so I figure we should hop into Miss Hua Hua here first. Now, the big thing with Hua Hua White, she gives a lot of energy, so that means she's going to be good for any situation that characters need a lot of energy. So, aka Aglia, aka Argenti, aka Donna Hung, aka Medi, aka the Herda. One needs a lot of energy. Robin can also take use of this, especially from the additional attack she's doing as well. Sunday kind of being a special note here, because it'll kind of transition us into the end of this section here, so we'll talk about him later. But Sunday does also work there too, and then also gives attack buff, so attack, attack, attack. Attack here, attack here, attack here for the dot, attack here for the dot, attack here, also ult to charge for her to get to Transcendence faster. Like, she helps all these characters in a good amount of ways. The main thing that she's providing for these characters, namely, if you can get both of them combined in the same package, ult charge and attack percentage is going to help every single one of these characters out, because it helps every single one of their multipliers. Now, I could have added Break in here, right? But I don't think that she is the best in slot sustainer for Break, whereas for this over here, I feel like she can be slotted in quite nicely with some of the Break characters. Like you see here, you'll see Firefly, you'll see Rappa here, right? I do think she has a good role. I don't think I have... Boot Hill should be on here. I don't know why I think him off, but Booty Hill should be up here as well. Mr. Booty should be up here as well. The reason why I have this up here, right, guys, is because you can run her on a team with Fugue, and then for your alternative breaker, and if you didn't have Ruan Mei, I do think she can fit quite nicely in there, because her sources of buffs do play directly into the super break damage you're able to do on enemies, so this will enhance all of their damage as well pretty nicely, so that's why I did add them in here. Now, Aglia will be able to take use of that as well, because Aglia gives herself a lot of free stats. Ultimately, she's going to be playing really well with characters that gives themselves a lot of free stats. So if you have a character that's giving themselves maybe one of these three things right here, she will automatically be a great support for them, because she does offer bigger multipliers down at the end of the damage chain here. So for her, you know, you're getting the res multiplier and the vulnerability multiplier, so that makes her really good for someone like Aglia as well, though the energy doesn't help out much. But look, you have a supporter, which is Tribbie, and sustainer, so you could run both on the same team and help with her. But overall, I do think Tribbie will provide pretty good assistance here. Also, Fei Xiao, there's a lot of follow-up attacks, and a lot of attacks in general. I mean, her ult charges up that much quicker, so also plays well there. Topaz Numbi, also same story. Follow-up attacks equal more attacks, which equal more attacks for Fei Xiao. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think that she's also going to work well just about any other Erudition unit. Why? Because we have someone like the Herta here. The Herta guy literally gives you an 80% crit damage bonus for the whole team. So this is going to be applying to Tribbie, so she's doing more damage, but also your buffers as well. So like we mentioned with this damage formula before, right? You're getting free crit damage multipliers here, so this already kind of eliminates you needing this from the equation, because you already have someone else on the team doing it, which then makes these values even better, or even more juicier to do more damage with, right? So that's why she's kind of there. Yang Qing, a very big thing I want to bring up about Yang Qing, guys, is he already gives himself a lot of crit rate, a lot of crit damage, so you're already hitting one of the things we mentioned over here in terms of the damage multiplier. Talk about Sunday here. Sunday, in the perspective of using her on a Tribbie team, is going to be good, because he provides these extra buffs that she can't cover. You're going to be enhancing your damage a lot more, because the damage you're doing is more well-rounded out in terms of like the debuffs and buffs that you have on the enemy and yourself and stuff like that, right? Whereas the reason why I have him listed over here is because Hua Hua gives energy back. If you give energy back to him, that's quicker ult time for him. If it's quicker ult time for him, that's going to be quicker ult time for the characters that really need that extra energy to pop off with. So the more energy you give him, the more energy you're giving them as well, but you're giving him, which supercharges their ult up more, so I think overall that makes it really good. Also, you're getting attack bonus, which I don't think he does. I could be coping here. I just don't think he gives attack bonus off the top of my head. And then also you're hitting that crit damage boost and damage multiplier as well, so that's also going to be super huge for there as well. If we're talking about teams options, I do think that Hua Hua does have more team options at this time in the game, just because of the fact that she doesn't really provide you with anything else outside of these two things right here, which are pretty low value in the grand scheme of things. You really need to ramp up some of the other stats in the damage formula for this to really pop off, where I feel like energy is a lot more viable and it can be used pretty reliably across any character in the game except Fei Xiao, except Acheron. I feel like this really does help out there too. Now, in terms of the builds here are going to be easier in my opinion. You just run HP, you run speed, you maybe run F-res here as well. Like, this is like not a must to have this here, so you could have that there. And then for Miss Tribbie here is pretty much the same thing. You want HP percentage, and then you want crit rate, and then crit damage here because she is a sub DPS, so she's getting her damage scaling from her HP percentage. This is where her damage is coming from, and then also you want to stack these up so she's doing more damage here as well. But you do not need any speed here, no speed at all. So realistically, I would say the easier build is going to be someone like HUO HUO here, because you can get a lot more HP main stats here, and then you can also just get some speed stats here and there. Whereas with this, you can get crit rate main and substats, but it's only in one piece, and then also it's just a lot harder to get these 3 stats versus what it is to get HP and speed. Like, you don't need effect res. It's nice to have it, but as long as you have HP, I think you're good to go. But I'll tell you right now, in terms of free-to-play viability, that she is the winner. The final point I want to bring up in this video, guys, is actually future-proof ability. Okay, this is going to be divided into kind of 2 different things here, right? Because we have the buff future and then the energy future. So I think that she's going to be helping characters that gives themselves a lot of self buffs, like crit rate, crit damage, attack, damage percentage, because if you give them these buffs right here, guys, as I mentioned before in the damage formula, her buffs play nice with these buffs already having on the allies, right? Because you're just enhancing that damage even further, because she has some pretty rare buffs slash debuffs on her kit. Like, she's giving you res pin, she's giving you vulnerability on the enemy, so this would literally boost these damage up even more. But with her, where she becomes really good in the future is characters with a high energy cost in the future. The higher the energy cost, the more valuable she becomes. So if we have characters in the game that have higher and higher and higher energy, she becomes more and more and more viable. I know it's still 20%, but that's just more energy you're giving to that character. If you take a look at someone like Sunday here, right? Sunday gives 20% max energy to one designated target. So I mean, like, this also has infinite scalability. Like, so it doesn't necessarily rely on someone like maybe like Ting Yun, right? One of our older characters that give energy, right? Where it's just a flat amount of energy is giving 50 energy. These characters have the ability to give you 10 energy or 70 energy, which is the max energy you can give out right now. So an absolutely huge range of energy you can give out to these characters. Also, this is to every ally as well, so you're going to be helping them get their stuff back up to help do more damage as well. So overall, it really depends on what the future of Honkai Star Rail looks like. I think both of these futures are inevitable. I think we are going to have self-buffers in the game that give themselves more of this. I think you've already seen this with the likes of like Fei Xiao teams. With the likes of running Adventurine for your sustain, he gives crit damage, and then you have someone like Topaz in the team, which is helping with vulnerability, but also is helping with like crit damage as well if you have Eidolons invested into her. So I can see that path opening up where she becomes more and more viable, because not many characters do the buffs and things that she can do. Also with her, the higher the energy cost, the more valuable she becomes. The only time that I see HUO HUO not providing much value to your account is whenever, first of all, we get a new sustain character that gives energy to the team. After you get a new sustain character that gives energy to the team, she kind of dies in that instance, in my opinion, because I feel like the main thing if you're using her for is that energy she's providing for the whole team. If we get a character that provides more energy, she's kind of obsolete. Secondly, guys, with her, she is a sustain character. Her main job is sustaining the team. She is just about the same as every other sustain we currently have in the game right now, whether that be preservation, he gives effect res, doesn't let the team die. You have characters that are already I would consider better than her in some aspects. Ling Shou, which plays really into like attacking a lot of enemies, hitting every enemy on the field, plays into break teams, whereas she gives energy and gives attacks. But the big thing is, all these characters do the same job, and what extra does she provide outside of healing? She is giving you energy, she's giving you attack percentage. So if any other character in the game comes out that gives more energy than her, she becomes automatically obsolete at that point. So that's the big thing that I want to bring up with this here, guys. I think in terms of future-proof ability, there is a huge, bright future ahead for Tribbie. I'm not saying there's not for her, but I do feel like the overall future-proof ability for Tribbie is going to be more than that of HUO HUO here, because of the fact that, like I said, the buffs that she provides is going to play heavily into the character we get in the future that give themselves more buff. Anyways, guys, the question you would be wanting to hear: who is better, HUO HUO or Tribbie? I think Tribbie's going to be better than Lion. Personally, I think Tribbie is going to be better than the line. I think Tribbie's going to get better and better and better, where I think you start seeing more and more of a drop-off for HUO HUO as the more patches come on. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Who are you pulling for if you haven't pulled already? HUO HUO or Miss Tribbie? So that's going to be all for today's video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one later. Bye-bye.